Hello and welcome, guys. I'm super excited to teach you guys today the fan. There is the move. This is the standard one, sometimes called the helicopter fan because it kind of looks like a helicopter. There's also the spike fan, which looks like this, where the blade is sticking straight up. So I'm going to teach you both of those today. Here are Slomos. Now, some of you may be able to just pick the knife up and just do this right away, but I'm going to try and go through this step by step really slowly, and I think I have a really good system that is going to teach you this one really well. So let's get right into doing that, and then afterwards, there's many fan variations, so I'm going to cover some of those briefly, leave some of those for later tutorials, but let's get into it. And so what you're going to do is you're going to start off by putting your hand, your dominant hand here, in this kind of a position where we have my thumb, which is kind of pointing upwards. My pinky is kind of out to the side here. And what this does, it kind of creates an L shape in my hand. And it creates kind of a solid surface that I can take the knife and kind of put it on my palm, like so. Now, this is kind of a funny instruction, but one of the things you're going to make sure when you put the knife on your palm is you're going to have the safe handle, right? So that's the one that's not going to cut you, and that's going to be closer to your thumb. So I'm just taking that handle, I'm putting it here, I'm sitting it on my palm. Now, once this is sitting on my palm, you can kind of see that my hand is kind of, flat, provides a nice surface for the knife to sit on. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my thumb, put it about 3/4 of the way up the knife, my index finger, put that about 3/4 of the way up a knife. Both of them are going to be on the safe handle and just supporting the knife, just like so. You're going to know that you're doing this right when, as I was just showing, you can take your finger from your other hand, you can remove both of these fingers, and the knife will stay there, right? If it's, going to slide off or something like this, then you're probably not doing it right. You want a nice solid surface. So again, you take the safe handle, place it on your palm, you take your thumb 3/4 of the way up, pinky 3/4 of the way up, other three fingers are just hanging out here. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the bite handle and you're going to flip it over the back of your hand. So what I like to do is if you just remove your bottom three fingers, like I mentioned, you can just take your wrist and flip it, and that's going to cause the bite handle to flip over the back of your hand. Now you can see it hits right at about my knuckle, right about here, and that's fine. It doesn't really matter exactly where it hits. Now, what you're going to do next, once you are in this position right here, is we're going to keep the knife on our palm here. We're going to take our bottom two fingers and we're going to wrap them around the safe handle, just like so. So we wind up in this position. So let's do that one more time. So palms like this, place the safe handle, pinch with thumb and index finger, flip over the back of our hand. We're going to take our bottom two fingers and we're going to wrap them around the safe handle. Now, one of the things you're going to notice about this wrap, and it's going to be kind of hard to show, but there's actually air in between the safe handle and my fingers. So my fingers are just kind of making a cage. They're not actually even touching the safe handle. If they touch, that's not the end of the world or anything like that. But the idea of this cage is going to keep the knife in place, but let it freely spin. So it's very loose. So you can see I can just literally, it's just like a pocket that I can drop the knife in. So you can kind of do a test by lifting the knife up and putting it back down. So again here, right, we're here, the pinch, flip over the back of our hand, we're going to make that cage. Now, once we have that cage, we're kind of actually almost ready to start going into the fan. Now, to begin the fan, what we're going to do is the knife itself is going to spin in a counterclockwise direction here, just like so. And what you can do to even test that you're doing this right is you can just take, like I'm doing right now, take the bite handle and spin it around and do a fake fan. These three fingers, you're going to notice they're literally not hanging on at all. And this will just kind of test to make sure that you're doing the cage right? So you're not gripping the bottom too tight or anything like that. It should just spin freely. It's just sitting there. So now that you have that kind of freedom there, again, we've kind of flipped the knife over the back of our hand. We wind up here. So again, right here, pinch over the back of our hand, cage. What we're going to do is we're going to actually do this spin a quarter turn at a time. So all you're going to do is you're pinching here. It's right at about your knuckle. You're going to take your whole arm and you're going to do a little bit of a push forward. And at the same time you push, you're going to hold very loosely with your fingers. And what that's going to do is it's going to cause the knife to spin. And you want to do about a quarter turn. So from this knuckle, 90 degrees so that the bite handle is facing away from you. And you're going to notice with these three fingers, I'm pretty much just supporting the knife. So my thumb is very loosely touching on this front corner. My middle finger is very loosely touching on this side, and my index finger is very loosely touching on the back. And so I can still take the knife and spin it, and it will slide evenly. And these fingers are just providing some support. So now that we're here, we're barely providing some support. We can do a push, and it should take us in 90 degrees, so that way the bite handle is facing away from us. So that should be pretty easy. You should be able to push and get it 90 degrees. Now we're going to go another 90 degrees. So we're going to go from facing away from us. We're going to go 90 degrees to pointing to the left. And we're just going to do that by moving our whole arm. We're going to do a little bit of a push to the left. Something like this. And so we've done another 90-degree turn. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do another 90-degree turn. So now it's facing to the left. We're going to do a pull towards us. And that's going to cause the knife to line up right about with our thumb knuckle. And finally, we're going to do a push to the right. And we're going to do another 90-degree turn and wind up right where we started. So as you can see, if you put all those together, you get a full turn. But what I'm going to get you to do for now is just to practice the push, 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 until you can kind of do that and keep the knife in place. One of the things you might notice is sometimes the safe handle is going to slip off your hand. You just kind of got to keep it in place with that cage, right? Where you're not holding on too tight where it's not going to spin, but you're just barely loosely holding on. You can kind of correct it as you need to. Same with these three fingers, right? Obviously, you're free to kind of touch it and move it as much as you want to, but the main idea is you're using the momentum of pushing your hand to rotate the knife around. So now that you're able to do those 90-degree turns and kind of keep things in place, and one thing you're going to notice, right, it's pretty much what's happening is the knife is spinning on your palm, right? That's kind of the feeling that you should sort of get there. Now, the next thing, you kind of got a preview there, we're going to do, instead of doing a quarter turn, we're going to try to do a half turn. So we're going to do a push forward and to the left, kind of like an arcing motion, something like this, right, where we're kind of going an L shape. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us about a half turn. And so if you do this right, you're going to wind up facing from, it used to be on the right, now it's on the left. You're going to do the exact same thing where you're going to do a pull back and to the right and try and do another half turn. So we go from doing quarter turns to doing half turns. And you can probably see where this is going from there. Once you've mastered the half turn, we can almost try and do a circle. So starting pushing away, left, back, right, until we can do a full one rotation and wind up right back where we started. And if you get that right, it should look something like that. So once you can do one rotation, what we're going to do is we're going to move to two rotations. If you're getting kind of stuck on that, you can really go quite slow and kind of lean your hand a little bit. And if your pocket is right, it kind of works, but I would say try and get the momentum working so you can really do one rotation at a time. Once you've done one rotation, let's do two. 1, 2. They don't even have to be quick, just 1, 2. And as you can see, you can probably put those closer together, doing 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. So I think this is going to be a really good way for you to practice doing that fan. Now, one of the things you're going to notice, I think that's going to be everything you're going to need, all those different tools. If you can do a half rotation, you can probably do a full rotation. If you can do a full rotation, well, you should be able to do 2 full rotations, and then just work on getting them smoother, putting them together. It might take quite a bit of practice. Now, you're going to notice, I think the most natural kind of fan when you learn this way is what I would call the spike fan, right? Where the blade is facing straight up. Depending on how you're doing this, you might be able to get into a more of a helicopter fan. But here's the main difference, and here's how you kind of control which one you're going to be doing. So this is kind of assuming that you have kind of mastered and you can really get into spinning, right? So you might need to do a little bit more work on that. So the spike fan itself, one of the things you're going to think of is if this bite handle has a lot of force pulling it outwards, it's going to cause the blade to stick straight up. And so the more outwards force you have in the circle, so the wider the circle is, the more likely that the blade is going to stand straight up. So if you do kind of big circles, you're going to wind up with the blade sticking straight up. Another thing you can do is you can give it more power. So the more forwards power you have is going to cause this handle to stick out and the blade to stick up. So if you go forward and back kind of strongly, that's also going to cause the blade to stick up. Now, I think most of you are going to want to know, okay, I can make the blade stick up, but how do I make it stay down? Because I think this is kind of a cooler looking fan, in my opinion. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to try and make the circle tighter, right? So if making the circle wider makes the fan stick up, if you can make the circle as small as you possibly can, that can help it to go down. Now, that's not a foolproof method, but essentially what you want to be doing is kind of keeping the center of gravity as much in the middle or even kind of away from where this handle's spinning around. So you kind of want to counteract those forces. One of the things that I like to do if I really want to go into a fan is I just try and make it faster. So a faster fan by nature is not going to be as big around. So if you get going really fast, eventually it should shift to being a kind of more of that helicopter style of fan. Another thing that you can do is if you just start in this same position where we're holding on with that cage on the bottom, and you can actually just, so we flip out over the back of our hand. And what you can do is you can just do a 180-degree rotation, so you wind up in this position right here. And what you can do is you can take the bite handle and just hold it in your hand and put it where you want it. So here we're making that T shape, and you can just literally give it a push with your hand and go into the spin and try and control it. So that's another way that you can really learn the feel of how that helicopter fan looks. And once you have that feel, it shouldn't be the most difficult thing in the world to just go into it. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about was just right there. So obviously right now we've kind of showed the janky way to go into it where you're making this cage, you're doing this thing, you're pushing, blah, blah, blah. And so, I mean, obviously you flip it over the back of your hand and you can just go into a fan. Another way you can go into a fan is obviously just right from a closed position. Now that's a little bit trickier, but once you have the fan mastered, I'd say you're probably ready for that. Now, all you're going to do for that is you want to take the safe handle in your hand. You kind of want to cradle it in your palm just the way you would, just the way I showed you. But what you're going to do here is take your thumb about 3/4 of the way up, your index finger on the back. And what we're going to do is we are going to take our arm like so, and we're going to try and flip the bite handle out like this. So the bite handle comes almost right towards my face. So I know you're looking at me, you're looking at my finger. Pretend this is your face. You're going to flip it out towards your face. And what this is going to do is it's going to give you kind of the right angle. So that way you can push with your index finger and twist with your thumb and go into a fan. And if you have, so here, thumb there, index finger on the back, palm goes down, we're kind of keeping, when our palm is down, you couldn't see that there, so maybe that was a little bit bad. Look at this, I'm pinching into my palm, so I'm creating that kind of spot to do the fan. And so when I'm pushing into my palm and I flip towards my face, you can imagine my face is like, over that way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make that cage, and then I'm going to twist with my thumb and index finger on the safe handle, and then I can go right into that fan. So this is what that looks like, something like this. That's the kind of the smoothest way to get into that. Now, as I mentioned, there are quite a few different fan variations as well. So one of those would be, for example, if this is the helicopter fan, something like this might be called the windmill style fan. Now, as you can see there, I think the easiest way to go into more of a, if this is, oh, I just slapped the camera. So the easiest way to go from a helicopter fan to a vertical fan is really just to tilt your hand, just like so. It's going to change a lot of the physics of it, but I think this is something that once you have this fan mastered, I think you kind of have the general idea you need to go into that more of a windmill style vertical fan. And all you do is start with the helicopter fan and slowly tilt your hand. One of the things that I find can be easy is instead of tilting your hand to the side, tilt your hand away from you. So if I'm doing the fan here, I can kind of tilt my hand away, and that's going to be a little bit of an easier way to transition into a vertical fan. Obviously, you can do it either way. And the same thing works for the spike fan, right? You can do that, and you're going to notice that when you go vertical or windmill style on the spike fan, you're really going to need a lot of, it's like you're cranking a handle or something like that. You need a lot of momentum to keep that blade sticking out. One other quick comment I wanted to make, I feel like there's a lot of details that I wanted to cover here, is obviously I've showed you how to do it with the safe handle resting on your hand, but that's actually not exactly necessary all the time. The fan's going to be a lot harder to maintain if it doesn't have a solid place not to slide down. But it is possible, especially for a time, once you get good at the fan, you actually don't need that support on the bottom. You're not going to get as many rotations, but essentially the way that works is as you spin, you're going to be using these 3 fingers to push the knife up to keep it from falling down. And that's something that's just going to take a lot of practice. Master the fan where it's on your hand and slowly try and slide it off and keep the fan going. Another thing that I'm going to do another tutorial you can look on is the reverse fan. So in my opinion, it's quite tricky to do a fan the other way, but it is definitely doable as well. It's honestly a very similar technique, but I'll probably put up a tutorial on that one just so I have everything covered. And there's also the underhand fan as well, which I will probably do another tutorial on. So feel free to experiment with those. Hope this worked for you. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Peace.